Well, good morning all. Good morning to this International Peace Bureau Berlin headquarters press conference on the day that the SIPRI figures are released, 27th of April. For many years now, we have been organizing as International Peace Bureau with partners all over the world the Global Days of Action on Military Spending, GDAMs we call them. And originally, in fact, GDAMs, it was GDAM, it was one day. But then as the network of other organizations spread, we extended the days of action so that now we're covering an entire month, because from the 10th of April, which was a date that was very important for our American United States partners, because it was just before the Internal Revenue Day, we go all the way to the 9th of May. But today is the important day because it's the day that the SIPRI figures are released. Of course, because of the pandemics, we're not having a press conference in physical presence, but here we are on video. And we have Tarja Cronberg with us, who is a former vice president and now just board member, I think, if I get it right. But Tarja has been with the International Peace Bureau forever and ever, and is a pillar and a column of all peace and disarmament work everywhere. Tarja has been, is a former minister from Finland. She was her party chair. She was an MP and then an MEP, and as an MEP was head of the delegation of meetings between Iran and the European Union, distinguished fellow of SIPRI, Global Security Institute's Middle Powers Initiative chair. Well, you name it, and Tarja has been it. Tarja, dear, would you like to give us some words, please?
Thank you, Lisa. After this kind of introduction, I don't know if I have anything to say more. But let me just, I work at SIPRI, and I'm very glad that there's an institution like SIPRI who is actually coming with factual data about what is the situation in security and particularly military security in the world. So I will just try to give you an idea of how the figures look today. And I think the main thing is that the world military expenditures, they have risen with 3.6% in 2019. It was 2.6 a year before. So we are experiencing a harsher security environment, and also what is very visible in these figures is the rivalry between the great powers. If you look at the 5 biggest spenders of the world, US, China, and Russia are all within this group. They have all raised their military expenditures last year about between 4.5, which is for Russia, to 5.3%, which is to the US. And of course, these are relative figures, so it relates to the US when raising 5.3, raises a lot more than Russia raising 4.5. So there is a great power rivalry going on, which affects the military expenditure. And then we can look at the 10 other top spenders in terms of raises in this past year. They are India, Saudi Arabia, France, Germany, UK, Japan, and South Korea. Of all these, Saudi Arabia and Japan have reduced defense spending. Saudi Arabia actually with 16% and Japan only with 0.1%, but they are anyway reductions. The US military spending rose for second time since 2010, and 2019, the US remains the largest spender in the world, accounting for 38% of the global military expenditure. Military expenditure in China rose for 25th consecutive year in 2019 and, and reflects China's increased engagement in the military. India is for the first time among the largest spenders in the world. It became the third largest spender in 2019. Germany, which is interesting, is increasing its military expenditure with 10% and is the largest one of the 10 top spenders. Now, if we look at regions, Africa is a region that is reducing its military expenditure. Like the Middle East, all other regions are increasing their military expenditure. The Middle East is explainable in the way it's not because peace is closer or there are less conflicts, but rather both Saudi Arabia and also Iran have reduced their expenditure due to the price of oil and economic hardships. Today, 8 out of the large spenders in military field, taken as a percentage of the GDP, 8 of these countries are in the Middle East. So Middle East is still a large spender, even though, and which is very good, it has reduced Saudi Arabia with 16%. The total expenditure of NATO countries was 1,035 billion, 50% of the global military spending in all. And if we finally want to look at individual countries, you're full of surprises because the highest increase was in Bulgaria, 127% raise in military expenditure. It's more than double. Togo, 70%, Slovakia, 48%. And if we look at the top decreasers, they are all in the African continent. First, Zimbabwe, minus 50%, Mozambique, minus 22%, and Benin, minus 20%. So in all, these figures sort of show you that not only the security environment is getting more problematic with raising military expenditures, but also we have to remember that the arms control treaties are retreating, that actually the intermediate range nuclear weapons treaty, the US withdrew from it on the 2nd of April 2019, and also other treaties. We don't know what happens with the START treaty next year. The general feeling is that this is not the period for arms control. However, there's one positive sign, and it's the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons, which was approved in the UN 2017 July, but it is not yet entering into force, but it's closing down because right now there are almost 40 ratifiers, and it will need 50 countries to ratify, which probably will take place this year. So this is the sort of green picture with a few hope-inducing signs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tarja. Thank you very much. Especially thank you for ending on a more positive note. The TPNW is something that we all worked on very, very hard, and we're still working on very hard. Now that we have 36 ratifications, as you said, we're on the way to entry into force. Now, I think I can ask Philip, give a few words of introduction for Philip as well. Philip is my co-president. We are co-presidents. Philip comes from the trade unions. He was the Secretary General of UNI, Global Union, until his retirement into the International Peace Bureau. He was brought in also because this is part of the reality of the International Peace Bureau from the very beginning, to be a network, a net actually, I almost feel like saying, that catches people like Philip into full-time work on peace and disarmament, because peace and disarmament is fundamental if we are to build greater justice, greater social justice in the world. Is that right, Philip?
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you, Lisa, and thank you for those very kind words of introduction, and thank you, Tarja. Could I also join with Lisa and thank SIPRI for the quality of their work. This work is necessary, this work is vital, and it really does put into context where the world is sitting today in all its uncomfortableness. I'm happy to say, Tarja, that SIPRI needs a response, and the International Peace Bureau has been active in building that response. Because I'm sure the world will ask, well, what would we do with this money? If we're going to cut military expenditure, where would we spend it? And we've done a magnificent job at the International Peace Bureau. And any journalist, researcher, academic, commentator, politician that is looking to see what we could do with this money, they'll find it in our healthcare, not warfare research, which is available. Tarja, I'm very sorry. Your report is dark, it's dismal, it's distressing, and it's depressing, but this means it requires a bright, lively, optimistic, and ambitious response. This is a very bad news day for the world, as I can see it, but what you're doing is giving us a wake-up call, because I feel that there's a sense that whilst we have these superpower tensions, why aren't the others and the rest of us standing up and saying, stop? It's almost like we are looking in the other direction. We are looking somewhere else and let them get on with it. I know from my own conversations in Geneva how toxic these superpower relations are having and impacting, and I'd say polluting, the general conversation. We are in a world race against time to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. And at the same time, we have an escalating arms race. These things don't match. We have these geopolitical tensions, escalating tensions, and a collapse in what you mentioned, the architecture for peace. When I look at these figures, I realize that the people in uniform that we should be helping are those nurses and doctors and physicians and essential workers who are dealing with the crisis and helping people. We're now reaching, or have almost reached, $2 trillion. Now I thought to myself, well, of this 2 trillion, how much would it cost for us to develop a vaccine? And I looked at the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation, SIPRI, and they say it would cost 0.1% of your SIPRI statistics to find a coalition here by the end of, or hopefully by the end of 2021. What conclusion can we draw from this? Well, Martin Luther King in his famous Riverside Church, where we were all supposed to assemble last weekend, when he was looking at the cost of the Vietnam War, looking at military expenditure, said that military expenditure was a demonic, destructive suction tube. What conclusion can we draw? I think we're spending resources on the wrong battle, and the military industry complex and their friends and political friends are winning at the cost of the population's health and their ability to deal with this crisis. We are investing, I know this was not mentioned in your presentation, we are further investing in nuclear Armageddon. A significant amount of these funds are going into the renewal of faster, quicker, more lethal nuclear weapons. And we have to raise global consciousness once again about this. We know that we live in a world of many fault lines, of climate, of our health, of unemployment, inequality, of inadequate social protection, and the nuclear dangers. But I think what we have to add to this is the missing dimension in the answers is peace and peace processes, peace architecture. What can we do? We are not helpless in this regard. And I think with all the work that you have done, the clock of the atomic scientists has moved a few seconds closer to midnight, even since its announcement in January. There is a call out there for Build Back Better. I like this theme because I was in the midst of the 2008 financial crisis as a union leader, and we were promised then change. We were promised then some kind of permanent change, that this could happen again. What happened was it was a return to business as usual. And looking at the United Nations work and dealing with disaster relief, there is this sense of build back better. And I'd like to think that because of the work that you have done and this wake-up call that you're giving, in building back better, we have to build a peace dimension. And perhaps there could be a peace dividend emerging from this when we see how stark the expenditure that we're making on the military is. The United Nations Secretary General called for a global ceasefire. How can we make that permanent? There was a call last week about a global effort that when we get a vaccine, how can we distribute it in a fairer way? Russia, the United States, China, and India were absent from that call. I know you're working from Sweden, and I know in 2022, it's the 40th anniversary of Olaf Palme's report on common security. We need another global commission, and quickly, to look once again at how we, in the midst of this crisis, can define what we mean by common security, and also how we can usher in, dare I say it, a new period of détente. We will not be building peace by building more firepower. We should be building capacity to deal with people's health. It is a time, It is a time, I think, for global solidarity, a new push to cut military spending, a new push to prohibit nuclear weapons. It's a time for the peace movement, the union movement, the human rights movement, and all those supporting the climate movement for this new world to combine their energies together and to mobilize and to articulate and bring new energy to the conversation to push the peace dimension into this global conversation. It is time for a new green peace deal. It is time for a new global social contract. It is time for a global reset. It is time to build back better with a strong peace dimension. Thank you, SIPRI, for your work. Thank you for the statistics. It's up to us to work with this. It's up to us to wake up the population, to shake global consciousness that in building back better, we have to have this peace dimension. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you for your very rousing speech, as usual. As usual, you really are an incredible addition to our International Peace Bureau. Peace activists who have been peace activists like me for decades tend to be rather low, sort of speak with low voices and not rousing enough. That's why we need you. We really do need you. This global days of action on military spending has been a wake-up call for us all. Thanks to Philip, thanks to Tarja, and thanks to all the work that our member organization in Barcelona, Centre de l'As, is doing. I wonder if Jordi is listening to us, if he can, he's obviously not on the Zoom call because I can't see him. I would, we were hoping that he would be able to contribute something, but it seems that this is not possible right now. So I think that with that, we conclude this conference, and this is we're available to anyone who has further questions for on the GDAMs and the general campaign.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank you.
Lisa, and thank you for the office. And I would like to join you in thanking our team in Barcelona. They've been working in isolation. The COVID virus has had a dreadful impact in the country, but even so, they've managed to put together a report of high standing, and a report which is of great use to the peace movement, the human rights movement, and the labor movement. I hope also that later we're having another conversation about what this means for Europe. And that was very, very striking. I know our office is in Berlin, but I can imagine in the Federal Republic of Germany, there'll be quite some noise being made about the fact that military expenditure has grown by 10% in Germany. And I'm awaiting a strong response from the peace movement and the labor movement in Germany in the light of these results at a time in Europe when military expenditure is also growing. We'll be returning to that later on in the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.